I
know
am a
you're
walking, living
right,
testimony of
literally,
faith. Okay,
really,
like if
really.
somebody is like questioning their faith, come see me. Okay, let me tell you a story.
Why would I be anything else when I could be me? No, but seriously, like, I could just do me, Like, I could just live my life as me. Just whole, complete, just myself. Unabridged.
All right, and welcome to this week's episode of Unabridged. I am your host, Don Miller, and I am so excited to bring you episode 13 of the journey. We are coming to you from a lovely Sunday. This weather this week has just been like spoiling your girl. It's beautiful, and I'm just like seeing it through my window right now, and it looks so lovely. So, whenever it gets warm, it kind of just like puts me and I guess most people in a really good mood. So I'm happy that spring is literally like when this comes out, spring will technically be tomorrow. So I'm super excited for that. And I'm also, again, always excited for our next leg of the Unabridged journey. We have an awesome interview later with one of my former bosses, a boss lady in the city of Philadelphia. She's going to share some amazing like details, and not only just about her life, but how she really just gets through and by doing all the things, because she does all the things. So super excited for that. But before we get into our unabridged journey, we have to get into my favorite segment. Let's get into it.
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 All right. Let's get right into it. All right. So many things have happened this week, right? And like so many things have always happened in between the time. And I promise when we get the funds up, we will be a weekly show. So that way I won't be going crazy trying to figure out what like 3 things I could just pull from this week that's been happening. So yeah, we're just gonna get right into it. So as always, we're gonna start with our local side girlies, and just talk about what they're doing. So I feel like we were talking about the Parker administration a lot, and we have to. They're new. They're doing so many new things. There's so many new ideas. There's so many new things that are coming out. All the excitement. So we're going to be talking about them a lot when we talk about the local side. So the Parker administration is here, and they are making a stance. And they made a stance this past Thursday, or when this comes out, it'll be last Thursday. On what date was that again? Thursday, March 14th, when she introduced and presented her first budget as the mayor of Philadelphia. Now, what does that mean? So we talked about this a little bit last week with Josh Shapiro when he did the stateside budget, but now Sherelle Parker has officially presented her budget to the City Council of Philadelphia. And that again means that she just presented the way in which she wants to actually spend, or what is the number? $6.29 billion budget, right? She just presented the plan out, what she wants to do, how she wants to address certain ills that are affecting our city. And like we talked about before, where governments put their money is usually where they put their values, and is also where an administration shows like these are going to be the staple and sticking points for my legacy. So Sherelle had some amazing, Mayor Parker had some, really important and big ideas that she came out with, and some things that we all know that we need, and some things that are a little bit like, So let's get right into some of the highlights. So right now, what she just did on Thursday was she introduced her budget, and what's going to happen over the next several weeks is that City Council or the legislative branch is going to go into hearings and really start diving into the numbers that she presented and talk to the departments that she wanted to allocate certain money to, and really figure out like, why do you want to put it there? How is it going to help? How did it help the last time you put money there? And really just dig into the reasoning behind why they want to spend the money the way they want to, as well as fight for their own priorities. And this process is going to go all the way up until about May or so. And the budget has to be passed by July 1 because our fiscal year ends at that time. Ends on June 30. So that means that by July 1, we have to have a new fiscal plan ready to figure out how we're going to spend your lovely tax dollars. I'm sorry if this light keeps going in and out. This is what happens when you are recording in the middle of the day, but rock with your girl till we get our new fancy camera. All right, so let's get into the budget. So I put these in like some 3 big buckets because some of her main points and some of the like fiery ones really just bundle down into public safety, what I'm calling the Philadelphia section, because that's what she called it. And then just a lot of other little random things that are kind of for kids, but like, ones that are kind of pulled out for young people. Because we always got to talk about the young people investment because they are what? The future. All right. So public safety, that was a big girly. And I feel like what I'm seeing with the Parker administration is that they are trying to take this hard left, right? Where before it was just really cool to hate on police. And a lot of people think that that's the reason why we're seeing so many weird spikes in crimes. The reason why we don't have the resources we need is because people have made it kind of cool to hate on police, right? So what I think the Parker admin and a lot of like that generation now is trying to be like, oh no. No, 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 no. We love the cops. We love the police. We put Bethel at the top of that, and now we love the cops. So I think that is a lot of what she's trying to fix in her administration is to change the view around, how we treat our officers. So she decided to, or she presented that, for this budget, she's going to put money in the budget to get 100 more community police officers. That mean people who are just out in the community, not the, and having, they can go to solving crime. But at the end of the day, that's really just about building better relationships with communities. So that way, when issues do happen I'm sorry, I keep saying the word community, but neighborhoods, when things are happening in people's neighborhoods, the cops have a better relationship and can get more information to actually solve those crimes. She also said she wanted to have 200 officer classes a year. So that means she wants to have 2 officers graduated through the police academy every year. She also said she wanted to put 150 more patrol cars out on the street and also wanted to put a few $1,000,000, and I don't have the exact number, but she said she wanted to put several $1,000,000 into upgrading technology in the police department. Next bucket, Philadelphia. She wants to pilot an $11 million trash pickup for 2 times a week. Now, that's actually not uncommon. Like many cities like New York, they have twice a week trash pickup. Most big cities kind of think it's weird that Philadelphia doesn't have twice a week pickup, but she's going to pilot it in certain areas to a tune of $11 million. 10,000, she promised under her $36 million Clean and Green initiative that she would get 10,000 abandoned cars off the street, as well as try to end illegal dumping. Now, I'm going to just run through all of these and do my reactions at the end. Next, our young people budget, or kind of like where I picked out the young people parts. $3.2 million in youth sports funding. Now, in the city of Philadelphia, you know that means a lot, because when you are driving on the streets and you see those young men with their football helmets and they're trying to get to states, like that is the type of programs that we're talking about. Counselors in every rec center, and increase the share of the property tax from 55% to 56%, which will give the district about $119 million over a 5-year period. So that means, right? So all of our property taxes goes to the school district, right? That is our share of how we support the school district, in addition to some dollars that we may give them just from their general fund, right? When they need it. So property tax goes directly to the school district. This is a lot of people we hating on the tax abatement because they feel like it removed money from our school district, but that's besides the point. That is now going to go from 55 to 56%. Now, we always think that 1% is only a little bit, but when you're talking about millions and billions of dollars, that could be a tune of about $22 million a year that is additional going to the school district now, only from the city. And that's massive, right? Because usually states are the higher funders, given that their budgets are a lot larger into local school districts. However, Philadelphia has for the last several years invested more money into the school district than the actual state has. That's how we go back to that argument what we talked about last year with the unconstitutional education funding formula, right? Because if you see, cities should not be putting more money into the state. And than the state is. They have much larger budgets. And not to say that Philadelphia school district should be put ahead any other school district, but we are one of the largest, if not the largest school district in the entire Commonwealth, as well as the poorest. And we also are not allowed to change the taxation for individuals in order to change the way schools are, right? Like and let me backtrack and explain that. So in other counties, they have elected school boards that get to set set tax rates that go directly to their school district. We do not have that power, right? So our school board has to just take whatever money that they get, and our school district has to kind of just take whatever money they get and figure out how they're going to fix things from there, right? And for the most part, they get a lot of money. I mean, the school district budget rivals the city budget. I mean, we're like city budget here, school district budget here. So they're almost comparable, but still at the end of the day, they don't have much control over those revenues. So, reactions. I think that most of this is not uncommon, right? Like Sherelle has always, or Mayor Parker has always been a champion of cleaning up communities to keep a community safe. If you lived in her district like I did growing up, you know Uptown was always clean and there was always police officers around, right? Or that, public safety, at least when I was growing up in Uptown, wasn't really like a major sticking point for us. So you can always kind of see that as being something that was going to be over her administration. So that makes sense. My only concern is because I think that none of this is really like, none of this is super, what do you call it, controversial, right? Like cleaning up the streets, everybody wants that. More trash pickup, everybody wants that. Feeling safe and feeling protected, most people would agree with that, right? But my concern is, and this was a report that actually came out by Power Research, is that majority of all the departments in the city of Philadelphia are still understaffed to a tune of almost 50%. So my thing is, I think, while we want to have this aggressive charge to really try to fix a lot of these public safety and quality of life issues, we don't even have the city at its full 100 working capacity. Like, let's be real, right? Like saying that we're going to go above and beyond and add all this extra stuff, right? It's like adding new rims to your car when you never even had all four of your tires blown up to the fullest height, right? You don't even know what it's like to ride your car with all four wheels blown up to this highest capacity, but you want to add the rims. So I think, that should be one of the number one things that we look at, right? And even the idea of getting a tune of, they're almost talking about 400 individuals to join the police force in order to get the total that they're talking about to have these community police officers or these more beat patrol officers. We have been having a hard time filling these classes. Some of these classes don't even get above 50 individuals that graduate a year. And we're lucky to get that. So I'm just curious about where the people are going to come from. And I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I think that was the number one sticking point to me, where are the bodies? Because that is the number one thing that the city has been missing. We have not been able to hire. And one thing that, needs to happen is looking deep into these processes that hire folks, because I know that ends up being a major blockade for individuals to start working for the city. When you apply for a job, usually, right, you just say, I'm going to apply, hear back in a couple weeks, yay, nay, second part, or you go about your business, you move on in a job, or you don't. With the city, sometimes you may not hear back about one position for 6 months. That's where we're losing people. That's where the city of Philadelphia is losing people. So I think a lot of these initiatives sound amazing, but we are going to lose quality individuals who could be counselors, who could be leading sports programs, who could be joining programs like CLIP in order to address illegal dumping. But we have to change our internal processes in order for us to be able to get these people through and hire. All right, that was my big one. Now, number 2, let's get to the next side. Now we're on again to the national girls. I think, did we talk about national girls last time? I don't remember, but we're going right to the national girls because they are acting a fool and they're making it hard for the Dems. The state federal girlies make it so hard for the local girlies. So listen, on freaking March 5th, 2 senators by the name of Mike Gallagher, a Republican from Wisconsin, and Raja Krishnamurthy, a Democrat from Illinois, and yes, that is how you say his name because I practiced it, introduced what they are calling Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, aka the potential ban on TikTok. Now, I had to talk about this because so many people are freaking out about this, and we're going to get into what happened in a little bit of the timeline of this. So on March 8th, these 2 senators, Republican and a Democrat, introduced this bill because they are afraid, right? They are afraid because the app TikTok that is used by over 100 million Americans is owned by a company called ByteDance, right? And ByteDance is a Chinese company. Now, for most people who don't know, or if you do know, Asia and China and America are like, they're like, I don't even know. They're like your spicy best friend, right? Because we kind of like need each other. They're like your jealous best friend, right? You know how there's always one girl in a group who's kind of always hating a little, but I mean, not, it doesn't have to be in a group, but like there's always one shorty in a group that's always hating, but y'all still keep each other around because you know she got the good hookups to places. That is China and America, but they see each other as the opposite, right? Because we need each other. They need us to buy their crap. We need them to make our crap. Right? It's just the realities of it. From Apple, tech, clothes, microchips, all that ish is made in China, and we don't make nothing in America no more. And then also, they need us to keep buying their stuff because what? That is the backbone of their economy. So, love-hate relationship. But also, constantly trying to spy on the other girl. We're always like, what are y'all doing over there? And they're always like, if we can know, we gonna know what y'all doing over there. So that freaks a lot of America out. They're like, oh my goodness, this Chinese company cannot have this amount of data because that is what TikTok does. TikTok get all up in your phone and you just say yes and agree to all their terms, and their terms will store so much of your data. And because of that, you know, they're freaking out. They're worried about what that means. They're worried about the activation power this app has. And that was seen through the process, which we're going to get to, and they freaked out about that, right? So on March 5th, this bill was introduced. They held, and when I say they, it was the Committee on Commerce held what they called a secret briefing about details about this bill and what some of the effects that TikTok has on young people, on, you know, data control. You know, they had a secret briefing about that, and it freaked a lot of senators out. So because of that, right on March 13th, the bill passed out. Only 8 days later, it passed out of the House with I'm looking for my number. Sorry. What was the vote? It passed out with the 352 to 65 vote. That's unprecedented bipartisan support that they voted to pass this bill out of the House in order to ban TikTok. And actually, the bill wouldn't necessarily ban TikTok. What the bill would technically do is it would just make the Chinese company sell its or make TikTok sell off its major shares to of ByteDance to another company, right? And unfortunately, right now, there aren't many people that are looking to step up to buy TikTok. So unless this company, ByteDance, sells off its shares of TikTok to an American company, they will be banned from the United States of America, meaning that you can no longer use it in the United States. Boom. So what happens? So after they had this crazy, what do you call it? Briefing. They voted it out of the House, and then TikTok freaked out. So TikTok put a message on the app and was like, your senators are trying to ban TikTok. Put your address in and call this person. So when they had this happen, all these young people started flooding the lines of Congress people and senators, and who were freaking out. And what they said was, and I'm going to link the article I got a lot of this from, they said it was a lot of young kids under the age of 18, 14, 15, just crying like, oh my God, don't take my TikTok away. Some kids even threatened self-harm if they took away TikTok. And that honestly pushed some of the members of the House to vote for the bill even more, because they're like, oh my gosh, why does this app controlled by a Chinese adversary, going to have this type of control over our youth? That's really scary. So it freaked them all out. And when you got to remember, a lot of these individuals are not, 30, 40-year-olds that kind of weed through the muck and grew up with social media. No, these are my moms and pop-pops who watch social media grow. And they were like, oh, I don't know about that technology stuff. And so they have this half misinformation, because this is not something that they grew up with. And then they see the effect that it had on the young people, on top of the fact that they got this scary briefing that talked about all the data that TikTok has. And the crazy thing is, like, again, and this is how I know this is a mom or pop thing, is because TikTok has just as much data, maybe less, than something like a Google. right, than like a Meta. And I know that we think it's okay because they're American companies, but so many tech companies have this level of data and have this level of influence on people. And to single out TikTok is kind of weird, right? And I get that, that these are Chinese controlled companies, but you're not going to act like there aren't foreign, companies that are tied into a lot of these other tech companies and things like that we use on a regular basis. They all have some level of interest and they all have this level of data. So to single out TikTok is kind of like a weird thing. And it's also a terrible time to do so because we're going into an election year and Democrats need what to win? Young people. Democrats need young people. And it doesn't really help that people like Donald Trump, for example, have come out against the bill, stating that he thinks that if we ban TikTok, it's only going to make Meta stronger. Now, just because they have that going and they're like, oh my God, now we're going to have only Meta, it doesn't mean people are only going to go to Meta. That's not what they're saying. But at the end of the day, now that Trump is with it, come on, girl, read the signs. And, some members like Jim Hines, who is the top Democrat of the House Intelligence Committee, opposed the bill, saying that, we are not China. And, in China, they have these type of controls over devices where they can reach into your phone and shut that shit off. And they can do that, right? They can do massive blocks on people's websites and internet. They had those type of bans. But what we're saying is that we're America. What happened to our civil liberties? We should be able to make the choices about, how you want to use our time and not have governments tell us whether or not we could use the app. And it's just, this is the worst time to do this when the young people, they already hate us. They already worry because, we don't talk about environment and things like that enough. But then now we want to ban TikTok and it's just not a good time for that. So now the next step for this is that it's going to go to the House, to the Senate, I'm all over the place. It's going to go to the Senate, and it's going to go to the Senate's Commerce Committee, which is headed by a lady named Maria Cantel. And in the past, Senator Cantel was kind of like on the fence about blocks to these type of programs because, this is not the first time that we've had a ban like this for social media apps that have come across the Commerce Department committee, this Commerce's committee. So, she's been, on the fence or kind of favorable to not blocking these types of apps. So we'll see. And I think that, where it's going to go a lot slower through the Senate because again, 8 days is an unprecedented amount of time for such a massive ban like this. And another thing is even if it does get through the Senate, really fast, TikTok is going to sue. And when you sue for something, that means that the legislation is on hold. And that means TikTok will be in use until we get to the end of the court hearings. And that we have an ability to appeal in the lower court, appeal to the middle court, all the way to the Supreme Court. And they could go until they get to the Supreme Court when the decision is made. So this is going to be a long, long process even after the vote is signed. So we'll keep an eye out on this. But again, read the writing on the walls, girl. You need these young people. So banning their favorite app and banning the way that they make their money is so stupid. I don't understand it and I don't agree with it. If you want, just add a couple little, clauses here, clauses there about the data. But to ban it outright just seems drastic and it makes you just seem so old and out of date. Get with the times. So, last thing. A movie review. So this is the fun one of the week, and I'm going to try to keep it short because we're already at 20 minutes. Jeez Louise. Even when I cut it back, it just seems like a lot. Don't look at the cup. All right. Last one. So I'm going to do a movie review, and this one was a good one. So last week I did a bad one, which is just crapping on Tyler Perry, and we don't only want to do bad ones, right? So, and while I wasn't even looking for my, what I'm going to talk about on the show movie. I was just kind of I want to watch a new movie. I was on Netflix because that's what I have right now. The girlies are kind of broke, so I was let me just go and see what's on Netflix. So I saw the movie Damsel pop up. And I was just Angela Bassett. I didn't really care about Millie Bobby Brown, but I saw Angela Bassett and I saw Robin Roberts. And everybody know that's Jenny. So I was let me see what this is about. So I watched the preview and I was okay, this is a lot. I need to see what the girls are doing. And the moral of the story is, or the gist of the story, and again, this is a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm going to be talking about all the things. So stop it here and watch it and then come back and watch it. But if you have watched it, so the moral of the story is that there's a really poor kingdom. It always starts with these random kingdoms and whatnot. So it's a really poor kingdom. And the king sells his daughter off, which is Millie Bobby Brown, to the richer kingdom, which is the queen. The queen is Robin Roberts. So we gonna sell Millie Bobby Brown to Robin Roberts to marry his son. Right? And it's already suspicious because they just look at the girl. They don't know nothing about her. They just say, come on, little poor girl, come over to our rich ass kingdom and we going to marry our son. And you're going to be happy. We're going to give your dad all this money to save his poor people. And you're going to come to us. So they doing all this freaky rituals. And they talked about these rituals in the beginning. And then whatever. Fast, they get married. Then as soon as they get married, they do this freaky ritual and they walk her to the mountains. From the rip, it's already crazy because these white people got gold masks on. And if I was to walk into space and a bunch of black people had gold masks on, I'd be like, oh, Wakanda, whatever. But this is white people with golden masks. So it's giving scary. So they all come up. Nobody's saying anything. And Robin Roberts is saying this whole story about their people. And they have to sacrifice 3 daughters. So I'm like, sacrifice 3 daughters? Or if I was Millie Bobby Brown at this point, I'd have been like, sacrifice 3 daughters. I'm a woman and just became the daughter. Whatever. More of the story is they got to go through this whole freaky ritual. They cut her hand open, join the blood. Now apparently she's a part of their royal family, and then they have to now sacrifice this hoe. So she threw the coin into the water that they gave her, thinking, oh, there goes my sacrifice, boo. And her new husband is supposed to carry her across this like really deep pit threshold thing. And then all he says to her is, I'm sorry. And then tosses her ass, sorry, into this dark pit and just drops her. Drops her into a pit. Not only did he drop her into a pit, but then there is a dragon. And basically what she realizes very quick is that she herself is the sacrifice. Later, we find out that she is not the only sacrifice. Now, of course, because the movie is about her, we know she's the only hoe that is going to survive. But when I tell you that this whole like fight for her is such a mind freak, like I'm like, the dragon talks. We keep having like these flashback times of other people who died and different levels of this cave and cavern that she's in. And the monster is actually just like playing games with her. Like it's like a tag game. It was a lot. And it was like, oh, it's not going to be your normal fairy tale. No, it was not. No, it was not. It was shot very beautifully. I will say some of the special effects were like a little corny. Like I didn't really like how the dragon looked. I thought she looked kind of funny looking. But like other than that, like it was a very beautifully shot movie. Like some of the parts of it were really cool looking. So that was really fun to see. But when I tell you it was very scary in some parts, and my mom laughed at me when I told her that I was scared at some parts, but I don't like little small spaces or falling through little crevices and holes, and that was a good part of the movie. And when you didn't think that she was going to make it out, I was really scared for her. I'm on the edge of my seat like, oh my God, this hoe isn't going to make it out. And then they kept, and I think I'm just like the queen at reading foreshadowing stuff, because of course, more spoiler alert, she gets out the hole, and I always pause the movie to see where we're at, because if we pause the movie, she got out the hole on like 15 minutes left, I'm like, oh no, they're about to wrap it up. But when she got out the hole and it was still like 45 minutes left, and I was like, oh man, they about to go get her little sister. Sorry, I forgot to mention she has a sister. And they kept like looking at her throughout the movie, like taunting her, and she's always like, oh, I wish this could be me, or I wish it could be pretty as me, or da 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 da. And I'm like, they gonna get her ass too. So of course when Millie Bobby Brown gets about the hole, they go get her sister, and then again taking my nerves back down into that pit. So again, it was a lot, but of course it was a lovely happy ending, and it was cute. My only qualms with it was that they wasted Angela Bassett. It's like, why would you have Angela? It's like putting Beyonce as backup. It's like if Chloe and Haley went on concert and you're like, I'm happy to see Chloe and Haley, and Beyonce comes in the background and is in the background singer. That's basically what they did to Auntie Angela. She had like 5 good lines and they gave her a really weird ass accent that I didn't like. It was also like they were aggressively trying to make a Shiro movie. It was like, we love Millie Bobby Brown. We want to make her a hero. We want to make her like, I'm not a princess. I'm going to fight my own battle. Especially one time when she like cut her hair off and she had like her Mulan scene. And I was like, I mean, she could have did all that with her hair still intact. I don't get it. So I don't know. They just it was just like, we want to make a movie and make it a Shiro movie with Millie Bobby Brown about dragons. And that's what they gave us. And that's really what it was. So it was a good movie. I would definitely recommend it. Definitely. I know that some people are probably let down that I didn't do that ragtag reality show Love is Blind, because I know they were talking about some man named Clay and his mama for weeks now. But where I'm at with myself personally is that I don't want to be traumatized by Love is Blind any longer. I refuse to be. I used to think that Love is Blind was a dope experiment that was like, maybe we can really try to find love without, seeing each other's faces, and maybe some way it could be really cool. And, it's a really awesome experiment that's led by psychologists and people. No, it ain't that. It ain't none of that. They take these crazy people who sometimes maybe just been married, maybe just been divorced, a little psychologically off, throw them in these pods and just make them do a bunch of weird stuff. So no. I'm not going to put myself through that anymore. Shout out to Lauren and Cameron. Love them. And shout out to Brett and Tiffany, because that is the only thing that show has ever given us. That's all we care about. Those 3 beautiful black people and that one white man who is really nice. That's all I got to thank Love is Blind for. Other than that, I'm not getting into it. I can't torture myself like that any longer, and I cannot support the torture of others like that. Get it together. I don't even care if I heard that they said, oh girl got it together in reunions. I don't know if I want to watch it yet. So I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it at some point when I want to torture myself. But where I'm at right now, no thank you to Love is Blind. Maybe Love on the Spectrum. I'll watch that. Waiting for that new season to come out. But I'm not watching Love is Blind. But all right. That's been Let's Get Into It for this week. We're going to take a quick commercial back. We're going to take... We're going to take a quick commercial break. This is why it's called Unabridged. Quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with our Unabridged journey for the week.
Are you looking for cool, unique pieces to add to your wardrobe? Are you looking to support Black businesses? Or are you just looking for cool ways to represent your culture and your history? Then visit Kingston Couture for all your custom apparel and accessory needs. You can visit Kingston Couture on Instagram at KINGSTONKOUTOURE. Now let's get back to Unabridged. Unabridged.
All right, okay, and welcome to the next leg of the Unabridged journey. I am so excited, as always, for our next guest. Again, like I said, we are doing a awesome, mini Women in History Month series, and this is our second guest for this month. Another woman who has meant a lot to me, as well as the city of Philadelphia. This woman is a momtrepreneur. Yes, I stole that from you. I took it right from your page. An advocate and an author with over 20 years of experience creating policy, moving policy, helping movements that support Black education, women, children, all across the city of Philadelphia, as well as politics somehow. I am so honored to have on the show today Ms. Dawn Chavous.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
This is wonderful. Can I just give you your flowers for one moment? You have this whole professional set up. You have the professionals in the back. They're doing, thank you. Thank you for making us look good and sound good. You guys are amazing. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. You're amazing.
Thank you.
But I knew that early on. So.
No, Dawn, thank you so much for coming on, because with all those things you have coming on, and with most of my guests that are doing the most, I'm like, can you just give me 20 minutes so we can talk about how awesome you are? Oh my goodness.
I'm glad I got here too.
Yes, I know it was a little bit of a journey.
Yeah, a little bit of it. I was out of town, so I was like, I got to come back for this. So here I am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think it'll be a good dialogue too.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
She's like, we don't even know what we talk about, so we'll see. So before we jump into everything, tell the folks who Dawn is. People don't know you.
Yeah, so thank you. So I am a mom of 2 boys under the age of 10. I'm a wife, and I am a mompreneur, for those of you who don't know. Basically a mother of young children that's also in business, and I own my own company, Chavous Consulting, which is a management consulting firm that I've had for now going on 14 years. I'm a connector, problem solver, fundraiser, strategic planner, event planner. I kind of do it all. Community advocate, education equity advocate. I'm sorry, my headphones are like slipping on me.
Yeah.
And you know, I just at the end of the day, for me, and how I describe myself is just someone who just wants to solve problems and make lives better for other people, particularly Black and brown children from underserved communities. So that's sort of what drives me and gets me up in the morning, other than my kids.
Who are Black and brown children
Right.
again.
Yeah, right. Facts.
So when I asked you to be in the show, you were like, I don't do podcasts
Right.
like that. I was like, why not? Why don't you do pods? You have such an interesting story. You do so many
Well,
things. Why don't you do
yeah.
pods or do interviews like that?
I think that up until, let's say, maybe the last year, I've kind of been very comfortable always in the background supporting other people, helping other people shine. I'm really good at that, you know, and I think it's important to acknowledge what you're good at and what you're not. And I never really considered, you know, to me, doing a podcast is sort of being not vulnerable, but just kind of being out there in front of the camera. And I'm used to, you know, doing what Eric does,
Right.
you know, and like being behind the scenes. And so it's been a journey for me. And I think, you know, my experiences over the last several years have sort of, you know, and a lot of prayer, you know, and has gotten me to a place where I'm getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so maybe I will do one in the future. You know, it's something that I have thought about. I do think, you know, we all have as women, and particularly Black women, have very interesting stories that most people don't know about, especially if you're only reading certain newspapers. And so just to be able to kind of write your own story, to have a safe space to dialogue and talk about issues, I think is very important. So I'm so glad you're doing this. But, you know, it's something that is a little uncomfortable for me because it's just not what I'm used to, because I'm very comfortable sort of being in the background. And I don't say that as a slight. It's just
Right.
like, you know, I've spent a large part of my career helping other people shine. And
I mean,
know,
you're like a doer. Like you're
am a
a doer.
doer.
You're like one of those people where you're just like somebody gives you this grand idea and they're just
Yeah.
like, okay, give it to Dawn and she'll figure out how to get it done.
yeah, that's facts. You know me so well.
That is very because I've been watching. I've been a part, and I was thinking, how is that even gonna? Well, Dawn's gonna figure it out.
Yeah, and you know, one of our mantras with my team is like making the impossible possible. And so, you know, you have Mission Impossible on TV, and then you have real life. You know what I mean? And so, you're absolutely right. Not trying to, but actually figuring out how to implement and just make change, right? That is going to have a positive impact in the community, city, you know, state where we live. That's something that's very important to me.
So I stole this quote because it kind of goes along with this from your page
Oh.
from Nelson Mandela. It's always impossible until it's done.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is just like Dawn in a nutshell. So where does that come from with you? Is that like is that something you get from your mom, from your upbringing? Is that something that something you try to rage against because then you see when you were younger? Like where does that kind of tenacity come from?
Oh, you're asking some real good questions. You're good at this. So one, let me just shout out Nelson Mandela. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but his life story is one that has always inspired me, and that's one of the reasons my first child's middle name is Mandela. One of the reasons I use this quote. I think someone who went through everything that he had to experience in his life and see what his journey was and what it and how he just took something that was so devastating and so that was so wrong. That was just such a beautiful example of injustice. And then, what he did, and then becoming the first president of South Africa, first African president of South Africa. But in terms of that quote, I think my upbringing has a strong impact on the way that I see life and how I operate now in adulthood. And I think, I had parents. I had the benefit of being a part of a blended family. And so my parents divorced at an early age. Early for me, I was like 8 or 9 years old. And they both ended up in other relationships with dynamic people who had a major imprint on my life. And one of those people who was a mentor of mine, Hardy Williams, who's no longer with us. He was the founder of the independent political movement in the city of Philadelphia. And at the time when he was in elected office or running for elected office, he was a Democrat, but the Democratic Party used to not allow certain people, and especially people of color, to run for office. And he was like, whether I have the support of the party or not, I'm gonna do this independently. And he ran for mayor, was unsuccessful there, but then ran for state representative and was successful there, and then became a senator. But he was always invested in the power of young people and always had young people around him. So he had a profound effect on my life. But in addition to that, there were other people like Wanda Bailey Green, who's no longer with us, Linda Watson, and then my parents. My mom was a social worker. My dad was an electrician, one of the very few African-American electricians in IBEW. And just the blended experiences of their lives and how, and the circle of people we always ended up being around. It was really important for, it really, I think, impacted my ability to understand different viewpoints, different perspectives, to appreciate the importance of community, to be exposed to different environments where, and this also being a product of public and private schools, seeing the differences of, I thought all schools were the same growing up until I had the experience of recognizing that that wasn't the case. I think all of the experiences, and I'm sure you can appreciate this yourself, like as a child and adolescence, helps sort of define, you as a person, or impacts, how you see and view life. And I think my mom and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, always sort of encouraged us to be independent women. And I really appreciate that because it was that sort of attitude that had me believe that anything was possible, and that if you put your mind to it and you work hard enough, that you can achieve anything that you want to do. And that, to me, ties into the quote from Nelson Mandela, because so many times people say, oh, you can't do that. Like, you're a woman, you can't do that. You're too young. You're too black. I'm sorry. Is it okay?
No,
we
you're
can
fine.
have real
Yes,
talk here.
yes.
I've been in all of those situations and in those different intersections of how people marginalize us as women based upon the way we look and our gender and our age. And it's been difficult, but one of the things I appreciate is being able to prove people wrong based upon actions, not words. So, and just getting shit done. But I don't normally curse. So
No, listen, but that's what you do. That is literally what you do. You get shit done. They're like, what does Dawn do? She gets shit done, okay? You want to get it done, call Dawn. So no, and that's actually like a really good segment. It's like segue into my next question because, and I hate that. Like when people talk about black women or women in general, they're like, oh, they have it all. They have it all mentality. And because they're a mother and a wife and they have their own business and they're beautiful and they carry themselves a certain way and they're, really, they have it all, right? And I don't ever want to define having it all just by being a mother, being married. Like you can have it all and be a single lady, right? But when people kind of, look at you, you are the poster child for having it all and doing it all, right? And I think that like we try to like steer away from that again because it is seated in so much ickiness, right? To just be like, oh well, you're able to do it, you're a mom. It's like no, but when I watch you and the many hats that you wear, being a mom, and not just like a pick up drop off mom, like no, you are in your son's lives, like you are there, you are present, you are doing pick up and drop off, right? Like you are not just that's my husband's career, like no, you were walking side by side with him. You are planning, you know what I mean? So you are very much into those roles that you wear on top of being an entrepreneur. So it's like, how did you even find the tenacity to do that? Especially in the face of so much negativity, because this is Philadelphia, right? And in a city like Philadelphia, the perception of wrongdoing sometimes can be heavy, right? So like, how do you even just manage to just look all that in the face sometimes and just be like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing?
Yeah. Wow. Great question, Dom.
She's like,
That
you
has
should
so
have.
many.
I told you should have sent me these before.
That has so many layers to it. And I don't, for people that, are not aware of everything that's a part of my story, I don't even know if they understand the question that you asked, which is a very powerful and profound one. But I'll start with like the parenting piece, because that to me is the most important job that I have, more than anything else that I'm doing, because I've been gifted this amazing responsibility to be responsible, my husband and I. So we co-parent, we do it together. And when you're living life in the public eye, it can be sometimes challenging to do that. So I'm going to just sort of take it apart a little bit. So just in terms of parenting, I will say that we don't, as parents, we don't have traditional roles. And I appreciate that. One thing that I love about my husband is that he's not only very supportive of me in running my business, but he's also a very active parent in the midst of everything that he has going on. And so like when you talking about pick up and drop off, I was kind of chuckling because he does that more than me.
Right. I'm about to say, I definitely did see him do pick up at camp. Like
he does that more than me. But he also has a staff of like 50 people.
Right,
I have
exactly.
like 5. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right.
So like he has a little more support around him in terms of the work than what I do. But that being said, I think appreciating and communication is really key and important. And also having a very strong foundation in faith, and that's what works for us. And so I find myself on my knees very often praying about how to navigate the awesome responsibility of parenting, in addition to the other responsibilities that I have in managing a company and being active in the community and being a leader in the city. And then just wanting to change things that I know are not right in this city of Philadelphia. And so, it comes with challenges, and it's funny because you say people think it's all together. It's not always all together.
Right.
It is not always all together. But we pray our way through a lot of stuff. And I think. And in life, we all have challenges that we go through, right? And I think that one of the things that I had to learn very quickly is that, even though we all have challenges, some are more public than others. And you kind of hinted at, some of the adversity and that we've gone through, and also how other people define you, and talk about you and have opinions about who you are, even people that don't know you. And so that at times has been very difficult to navigate, especially because I'm not, we're both leaders in the community, but we're not in office, right? And so I think, there's an expectation that you're going to have some of that judgment and critiquing and criticism as an elected official. But those of us who are sort of connected to it, but not elected officials ourselves, sometimes we get that. And it's just like, you don't even know me.
Right. Right. And I did not sign. My name was not on the ballot. My name was not on the ballot.
Facts. And so that's a little bit challenging. But I will say that my faith is something that I lean on often, and that has gotten me through a lot of the challenges. But just for the record, it is not always together. There are struggles. Even with things that look like they are all together, it's just not the case. We are all works in progress. We're all trying to do the best that we can. But I will say for both my husband and I, who are trying to just navigate the space that we're in, our first priority is always our children. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it
Okay.
does. It does. And I like really rooting it in your family and in your faith. Like that.
Oh,
That's how you get by. Is through
100%.
those things. And I know
am
you're
a walking, living testimony
right,
of
literally,
faith, okay?
really,
Like,
really.
if somebody is, like, questioning their faith, come see me, okay? Let me tell you a story. It's too much to get into now, but, like, yes. So, yes, my faith is, and I hope that when people see me, especially for those that know, like, my story and things that we've had to go through publicly, I hope that is something that inspires other people to not, for those who, I don't care if they're, if you're Christian, Muslim, Baptist, Adventist as I am, it's just, there's power in faith and I just and strength and I just believe so wholeheartedly that needs to be the foundation of how we move in this crazy world we're all living in.
I know. I love that so much. I think that's very inspirational. And I think really leaning on faith is something that a lot of anybody in the audience, no matter what they're going through, can really identify with, right? Because and I'm happy you said that, because I'm not a very religious person, but I am spiritual. And I feel so much appreciation for like prayer, for being able to talk to higher and having that kind of connection. Like that's kind of what carries me through a lot of the times too. So I think that a lot of people can really understand that, and it's just like, okay, well, she made it by through faith and is able to do this. Maybe I should just keep holding on. Just keep holding on.
Yeah,
so,
and make some of the issues we go through in life a matter of prayer. I believe God not only hears you, but also answers prayers. It may not be in the timing. It may not be what you wanted, but trust me, there's an answer, and sometimes things happen in our lives that we attribute to luck or, happenstance. But in my opinion, I think everything happens for a reason. And I believe that, God in his own time directs our paths the way we want them to go. And it's our choice to decide which way we going, We all have free will, but I do believe that it's our faith that can carry us through the toughest and the best of times. Yeah.
So how did the universe and all this stuff push you towards education advocacy?
My life experience, honestly, I was a student board member of the School Board of Philadelphia. And I became that because I was a vice president of student government. So, growing up around people that were activists and involved in the community, as I mentioned, my mom was a social worker before she started her own business. And then being around elected officials from childhood on up, just seeing people really care about the people and the outcomes of people's lives and wanting to see communities do better than what they were. And so I was interested in student government, and I became vice president of citywide student government, and then I was afforded that opportunity to sit on the school board. And that's when I was just trying to advocate for my own school. I went to Franklin Learning Centers, which is a magnet school, and we get credits instead of grades. So if you don't get 80 or above, you're not passing. I think at that time, I was just like, okay, here's Franklin Learning Center. Down the street was Ben Franklin High School. And we couldn't go to Spring Garden because we would get beat up. So we had to go to Fairmount, you know what I mean? Around the corner was Masterman. And here you have 3 very different schools with very different populations of students, all coming from different parts of the community with very different experiences regarding what their education was like. And then I had the opportunity to go to a private Christian school as well as another private school before going into public school. And I was just like, why is it so different? With science, I'm in a book with one school, and in the private school, we're outside, learning about different rocks.
In the lab.
We're we're making clay pottery. I was like, oh, this isn't. But in that experience, the culture was different. It was at Springside Chestnut. It was at Springside, which is now Springside Chestnut Hill. I was there for 1 year. And the challenge wasn't the education, it was the culture, because at the time it was not as diverse as it is now. And it was the social economic status of who you were. I thought we were okay until I got there. I was like, oh, we poor.
Right.
I was like, they were like, oh, where's your summer house?
Right.
I was like, summer house?
Yep.
I'm sorry, you mean summer camp? It was at that experience. I was like, oh, so we, I thought we were all right. And until I got there, they're like, oh, which house do you live in? I was like, you mean in Mount Airy? I don't live in Chestnut Hill, And so it was a very challenging experience for me, but it was also very eye-opening because I'm like, how is education this different? And that was just as a child. I didn't know then what I know now. The system's not set up to work for some of us in the way that it was designed. And that is what, so at an early age, knowing the disparities then, And then like fast forwarding to college and running the America Reads program, which I don't know if you're familiar, it was former President Bill Clinton wanted to bridge the gap between universities and colleges and their surrounding communities. And so we would go out and do free tutoring in the low-income communities around the school where I went to Ursinus. And so we would go to Pottstown and Norristown. And I'm just like, these kids don't know how to read. And they're in third grade. Like, what? We're missing the mark here. And tutoring can help, but it's not going to close the gap alone, you know? And then fast forward to working with Senator Anthony Williams. And I was just like, wait, okay, we have a new system with charter schools, and this is an opportunity for people to be innovative. And at that time, a lot of the schools were being started by community activists who just wanted to see a better option in their communities. Because we were getting calls all the time asking for us to help them transfer somewhere else. I knew parents, I'm not going to say no names, even to this day, that were using other addresses to send their kids to a different school. It's like we have to like pay attention to the realities of what families are dealing with. And so all of those things sort of tied together into sort of where my my work is now around wanting to create a more equitable system so that where you live or how much money you make should not determine, you know, the educational outcome or opportunity that you have, you know, and we have to do better. I feel like we are failing children as a city and that we all can't do everything, but all of us can do something. And so I'm just trying to do something that I know I can actually accomplish that will benefit the lives of a population of students that I know is not being given the opportunities that they deserve. So I don't know, but
No,
all of my
that
life
does.
experience really did help
does so
inform
much.
where I am at. I'm not like, oh, I'm against public school. No, I want all systems to work, but we need all of the systems,
Right.
you know, because we need those options. In particular, Black founded and led institutions, as you know, is very. You know, I'm very passionate about that because I do believe it's important for Black and brown children to see people in the classrooms that look like them. I think it's important to have African-centered education, culture. You know, if we're thinking about students and families, like, and we're educating the whole child, it has to be more than just like reading, writing, math. You know?
And that's what you get from that's what you get from Black schools. It becomes about who you are as a whole person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it helps children build the confidence that they need to deal with the adversity that they are going to face, you know, and helping them realize that they're enough as they are, you know, no matter what anybody says to them, no matter how anybody else treats them. And that's part of the reason I wrote my book, you know, too, because I'm like, I'm loving on my kids and my child's telling me he's not special because he can't fly like Maui in the movie Moana. I'm like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, excuse me, sir. You got these kids believing you can fly.
Right.
No, it's a great movie. I love it. But like my son said that to me, and it was a very low moment for me as a parent. I'm like, what am I not doing? What am I not saying? That he watched a movie and told me this when he was 5, and I was like, okay, I got something for you. Problem solver. We're gonna write a book, you know, and I'm gonna not only tell you but all children just how special you are. And so I was really excited to do that. And they were like, oh, wait, Dawn wrote a book. I was like, yes, I did, you know, so that he knows and everyone in perpetuity forever and ever. And it's a really great opportunity for me to go into classrooms. And Tom, some of these kids say the most amazing and scary things. Like, I mean, if you just talk to a kid, like, they are no filter. They
Not
will give
at
it to
all.
you straight. And like, some of these kids are like, oh, I'm not special. My cousin bullies me. My mom doesn't love me. I mean, these kids are going through a lot right now. And it's, I think, our responsibility to do what we can. We can't replace a parent or a caregiver, but what we can do is love on the kids in our communities and make sure they're getting all of the support that they need to be the amazing people that they are, you know?
You literally answered my next
great.
question after
Okay,
that
great.
because I was going to ask you about you are special.
Oh.
And I was going to ask you about, you know, what you wanted your legacy to be in education, but you pretty much hit those right on the head too. But I always think it's so awesome that, like, I can go on Amazon and there's a Dawn Chavous book. I actually ordered it when I was prepping for today. Yeah. And I can't even get it for, because because usually my book babies are Isaiah's kids, but Clarissa has like 3 copies of those books already. So I just have like kids' books in the house now. But no, I think that is so amazing. And you see why I said do it all. You're not just creating a business, but you also got a book on like an actual book too. So I always think that is so amazing. Make sure you guys look out for You Are Special. We'll put the link in our show notes as well. So we talked about your legacy in education and, those things like that. And the one thing that we were talking about before the show started was an awesome town hall event that you just had. And, I want to talk about the event, but I also want to talk about like what that event means in like the greater scale of education is for the city of Philadelphia. Because, most of my listeners know, like I talk about it in my Let's Get Into It segment all the time, that the city is under massive change right now. I mean, we are going through like historic amounts of change, or at least in my 20 years of whatever, being a realizing person, like we haven't seen as much change on our council, with our council president, within our school board, our mayor. So we are in a space of a lot of opportunity, right? And I think that makes some people excited, right? Especially as you look at some of our systems that have historically failed because of things like lack of collaboration, and education is one of them, right? So can you tell the audience a little bit, not number one, about the event that you just had recently? It'll probably a little bit older at this point. You're probably on phase 4 by the time this episode comes out. But just tell people, number one, about the event, and honestly, like what that goal is for education future in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for the question. And you're right. I don't even know if it's the precipice anymore. I think we're like in the midst of amazing change happening in our city, which is great. For the first time in a long time, I think many Philadelphians, including myself, are hopeful, and excited about our leadership at the local and the state level. And I think it's up to us to recognize that the government alone cannot solve for all problems, that we as community members and as citizens of the city have a responsibility to get engaged and to do something. And so the town hall that I created was over several months of just thinking, planning, talking to many different stakeholders, and also watching Nightline.
TV gets you messed up sometimes.
I gotta keep it.
It does.
I gotta keep it 100 here. And so Nightline is one of my favorite shows. And if when it comes on, that I'm up late, because it doesn't come on until. But they have a partnership with Hulu also. But I was watching Nightline, and I'll get into that in a moment. But it's a kind of a culmination of all of the work. And I've always been a huge proponent of school choice, and really at the root of that is like empowering parents and letting them decide what's in their child's or caregivers, their children's best interest, and making sure they have the options available to them and where they live and how much money they make, not precluding them from opportunities that other people might have or be able to access. And so I wanted to create this town hall, particularly during Black History Month. So it was at the very end of Black History Month, because the history of our education system and how it was created, who it was created for, did not have us in mind. And when I'm talking about us, I'm talking about African Americans in particular. And so I feel like, we across the board, whether you're looking at charters, traditional publics, magnet schools, we are not where we need to be. In terms of outcomes for our kids, and in particular, Black and brown children from disadvantaged backgrounds who end up in a lot of our underperforming schools, both on the charter and the traditional public school sector. And I wanted to challenge people. I wanted to first ask the question, like, am I the only one that's like crazy, or does anybody else believe that the house is on fire? And it was so amazing to see like over 200 people come out to say like, yeah, you're not crazy. And we agree we need to be doing something else. And I wrote this op-ed that the Philly Tribune published the week before the town hall. And basically the title of it was A Shared Responsibility in Education. And my whole premise of the op-ed was to talk about how we all have a responsibility to fix what is broken with our system. And we know it's not working. But like some people are okay with the status quo, and for the system, it is working for some, but it's not working for folks like me who know that we are not serving, Black and brown children. And so I was like, I want to just create a space that like brings all the different education sectors together, and try and challenge people to change the conversation and to view and design something differently that we have control over. And so it was beautiful to see like the traditional public school sector, the private school sector, and public charter school sector all coming together, from school leaders, parents, and students. And what was so interesting was like they were all sharing similar stories and similar issues that they're all dealing with. And I'm like, if we can, stop bickering about which type of school is best and refocus that energy on like how we improve educational outcomes for Black and brown children from disadvantaged communities, we can do like a whole lot more than what we're doing right now. And so I was watching Nightline one night, like I think it was in November of 23, and I saw this beautiful African-American professor, female professor, who is the founder and creator of the Black Education Research Center at Teachers College, Columbia University. And she was on national TV talking to Byron Pitts, the anchor, about the fact that the education system in America is not working for Black people. It's not working with children with disabilities. It's not working with children that speak other languages. I mean, she went through this whole host of issues and then did the drop mic face, like, and what? And I was like, that sister is so dope. One, I had never heard someone on national TV speak so confidently and directly about the issues of education that we kind of all skirt around sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to know her. I became an instant fan. And so I started looking her up. I was like, who is she? I don't know where she is. I need to know her. What is she doing? And then I got her books, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I got to bring her to Philly. So she lived in Atlanta. I reached out to her team, and they were like, oh, yeah, well, she speaks around the country, right? So they were like, what's your budget? I was like, I don't have no budget.
Right.
And they called me back a week later. They were like, we appreciate what you're doing. We understand grassroots advocacy, and we'll take care of everything. We'll be there. And I was like, thank you, God. See, your faith, right? When you know you're doing the right thing,
I love that.
people like will embrace it. And
Yeah.
and she came and did another drop the mic moment. And she was like, so in this town hall, I'm like, the house is on fire. The kids are in there. Nobody sees the smoke. Does anybody else see the smoke and the fire? She's like, Dawn, the house burned down.
Right. Right.
She was like, and now these kids are homeless. We need to be thinking about how we're designing a new system of education that has us in mind, at the forefront. And so that was the purpose of the town hall, to challenge people to think about education differently. Let's talk about it differently, and let's not focus on what divides us. Let's focus on what pulls us together. And that is why I am so excited about our mayor, because if you've heard Mayor Parker speak, she's right there. She's like, I just want quality educational opportunities for our kids, and if you come to her with like this one versus that one versus, she don't want to hear it. And I'm like, that is so refreshing for me as someone that's been doing this advocacy work for the last 20 years. It's like, this is a time and a beautiful opportunity for us to change the system, because like we can't continue to do things the same way we've always been doing them and expect different outcomes.
Yep.
Like that's insanity.
Literally insanity.
So like we need to switch it up a little bit and do things a little bit differently and be okay with like being in an uncomfortable space. And I know everybody's not going to agree with that, but like I just fundamentally believe we can't continue to do things the same way. We can't. We have to challenge ourselves to be different, think differently, and to listen to parents and students and actually take action on the things that they're saying, because they're the customer, they're the consumer, they're the people who are living the experiences that we're creating for them. And their voices are so important, but not everybody gives them the respect that they need. And I'm like, listen to the parent, listen to the teacher, listen to the student, and we can get a lot more done than what we're doing. So that's what so now we're creating a working group. I started this initiative, the Education Reform Alliance, New Era. That's, it stands for ERA. And like, we're in a new era. We're in a new day. I feel like, we need some music around that, like we're in a new day. It's a new season and we're going to shake things up to improve outcomes. And we're going to operate like it's a state of emergency, because that's what it really is.
It really is.
Every year that goes by, we're losing another generation of kids. you know?
That's so real.
So-
No, thank you. First of all, thank you for that. I was actually able to attend, and it was very inspiring to see. Especially, I think the most moving part was to see these young people speak, and I think
Yeah.
that's what really kind of like woke everybody up. That this is not something that we can like push under the rug and just pass them along through. It's like, no, they're starting to realize a lot of the things that are wrong with the system that is supposed to educate them too. So
Yeah.
I thought that was so amazing. I could talk, these things go by so quickly. I could talk to you about this for at least another hour, but I have to wrap up here and have to ask the final question that I always ask everybody. So the name of the show is called Unabridged, which means to be your whole unedited self, to be completely unabridged. So what does that mean to you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it means being authentic, right? And being unapologetic about who you are, and standing in your truth. And that was difficult to do, especially given my experiences over the last couple of years. But I had to stand on my faith, and I had to stand on my truth, and I did. And I kept moving, and I kept working, and I really believe I don't look like what I've been through, but I've been tested. And I think for me, I hope that my experience, for those who know my, at least part of my story, it inspires them to just be who you are and continue to just do the work and, quiet out all the noise. Because a lot of people will have a lot of things to say, and there will be people who will disappoint you, right? And then there will be people who will support you and embrace you and continue, no matter what you're going through. And so for me, being unabridged is like being exactly who you are and accepting that for yourself, and then being able to articulate and communicate that to the public, with your full authentic self.
I love that so much, Dawn. This is why I wanted you to be on the show. You are unabridged. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. We're definitely going to share all the amazing stuff that Dawn is going to be working on in education moving forward for the new era. We're super excited. And that has been our unabridged journey for the week. We'll see you all in 2 more weeks. Thank you.
And that has been Unabridged. Thank you so much for joining the journey. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch the show. Also, check out our website. That's unabridgedpodcast.com. We'll see you in 2 weeks.